Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for November 21st, 2019. I'm your host, James Davenport, staff writer here at PC Gamer. With me today, I think it's your first time on the show, isn't it? Tom Sr., UK online
Yeah,
editor.
long time listener, first time caller. That's neat to say.
Hey, well,
Pretty
welcome
happy
to
to
the
be on.
show. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're here to talk, well, Star Wars, Jedi Fallen
Oh
Order.
yes,
You're handling the review, and have you finished it at this point?
I have finished it. I'm
Right
sort of
on.
cleaning up a few kind of side quests and things, but I've done the main story.
Right on.
Keen to spill the beans.
Cool. Yeah, we'll be opening the show with that. It's gonna be a fast show because Half Life reveal is happening at the end of the hour. Tom's gonna be taking off after Star Wars, but Joanna Nelius, our hardware staff writer, is here to talk everything Google Stadia.
Oh yeah,
That's been your life, what I
that's been my
hear.
life the last week or two. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be diving into the service, like the status of it now, some of the games available, some of the more nitty gritty stuff I'm sure that you know all about and are just waiting to spill the beans on as well. And if we get to that point, because at 10 a.m. Pacific time, the Half-Life Alyx VR game reveal is happening, and we'll just like watch the trailer, or I'm assuming it'll open with the trailer and just react to it because it's a goddamn Half-Life game that's coming out on the computer. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, why don't we open up with Star Wars? Star Wars Jedi : Fallen Order. Is that where the colon comes in?
I believe there's a colon in this one. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's hard to tell with PT games. Yes, it's pretty good. Is the nice news. It's actually we wrote an op-ed like a week or two ago saying, asking the question, does EA really deserve the Star Wars license, given that Battlefront 2 went the way it did, and there just haven't been Amy Hennig's game was cancelled.
Yeah.
But this is a bona fide single player Star Wars game. And it's about 20 to 25 hours long. There's no kind of games as service nonsense in it. It's just a very straightforward. There's no microtransactions or anything like that. It's just a really straightforward third-person action game with a cool lightsaber, where you play as the blandest man in the universe.
Yeah. He's the.
Which which I feel bad saying that because it's a face scan of a real actor. So when we say he's the blandest man, like that man just looks like that. But he's also just got this like kind of crazy, really well conditioned Buffon ginger hair.
His
that
hair is
doesn't
always
work.
looking good. It always looks
Yeah,
nice.
it looks way too good for the Star Wars universe because he's supposed to be like a scrapper, making ends meet. He's a Jedi in exile basically. It's set between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy before Episode 4, right after the Empire kind of betrays the Jedi by giving this order to all the clones to execute every Jedi nearby. But he manages to kind of like hide out on this junk planet, and that's where your story starts. And from there, it's a very kind of Joseph Campbell hero's journey. It's very kind of old school Star Wars. It's very much like you're playing a guy who obviously like. Luckily, he starts out as a Jedi, so that he doesn't have to discover that he's a Jedi, which is always the tedious bit of really the boring part of like a Star Wars thing. But he meets some mentors, and they start teaching him the ways of the Force and all that. And then, obviously, you know, he gets a cool lightsaber, and then he murders billions of stormtroopers.
So
and,
many. So many.
so many men killed and just struck down.
I know what usually passes for like, simple drama and action in a Star Wars movie is just like, I feel awful. There's so many stormtroopers dead. Yeah, but I mean, like that's sort of I think at the front of it, or what stands out to me about this game is and the pitch, sort of leading the pitch, has been that lightsaber combat. How is that? How you digging?
So it's, I think I really enjoy it. I think it's a really good lightsaber.
Yeah.
I think that they've lifted a load of ideas from Sekiro. So enemies have 2 health bars. They've got like a posture bar, which goes down when you block or parry them, and then they've got the main health bar, which obviously once that's gone, they're dead. But you can get instant kills by getting the poise bar down and then doing a single death blow, which is very Sekiro. But that's as far as the resemblance goes. It's a much softer combat system and less punishing, unless you ramp up to really hard difficulties. But at those really high difficulties, I tried it, but it's just not a very satisfying action game. It's much easier just to breeze through it and enjoy the power fantasy of being a Jedi rather than treating it as a really hardcore action game.
Yeah.
I'd say like the lightsaber combat's great because killing stormtroopers is really good. They've recorded so many barks for the stormtroopers that range from like massively overconfident to, oh god, I'm the only one left, you've murdered all my friends. And it's always fun to defeat them. especially the really really arrogant ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's basically it's a power trip rather than a kind of like if you're looking for a challenging action game, you want to go to Sekiro, you want to go to Bayonetta, you want to go to stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the Star Wars fantasy delivered in quite a snackable format, then that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's structured like a Metroidvania, so there are these big open kind of dungeon maps, but it's not an open world so much. There'll just be doors that will be locked off to you until you've unlocked certain force powers, and then you go back to different planets and then discover new kind of dungeons, and then unlock new bits of lightsabers. You customize your lightsaber, which is really fun. You've got a wide array of ponchos you can wear. I wasn't aware that was a Jedi thing.
I didn't know either.
Apparently,
You find so many
apparently
ponchos. Like accessorization is key here.
you'll be in like a crashed Star Destroyer, and you'll find a box down a mine shaft, and in there'll be a poncho. like, what is this universe? It's really weird.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I'm sold on this game now, just for the ponchos. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Top ponchos, lovely ship paint jobs, that kind of stuff. But I like the fact that all that stuff is just unlockable in the game, and it's a reward for exploration,
Yeah, it's nice.
rather than it being a kind of in fairness, you could pre-order the game to get an orange lightsaber, but
Woo.
that's the only kind of bit of rubbish in it, really.
Yeah.
Have you guys played it?
Yeah, I finished it up.
No.
Yeah, Joanna's one of those Star Trekkies. But I finished it up on the difficulty above normal, whatever. Jedi Mass.
Yeah, that's what I played most.
Yeah, and that was like a sweet spot because you start off feeling a little. I kind of like it hits and it opens as something that feels way more Souls-like than it ends up being. Which is, I don't know, it's kind of nice. It's like this like genre transition from that follows the power trip from weak Jedi who is constantly praying at what do you pray at, shrines or like weird little sigils on the ground, force sigils, to the bonfire stand-in, and like kind of like really wrapping your head around enemy attack patterns, how to like the interplay between long distance stormtroopers and melee stormtroopers, and trying to balance that kind of stuff. And like really, you have few health stims. Those are like Estus flasks in this. So I was like, oh wow, this is a Souls-like. And then you learn Jedi Force powers. You master some basic attack patterns and parry window timings, and the game stops being. It transitions more towards that traditional action game, the Uncharted with some paths of divergence and some Metroidvania stuff, like pretty light. It's not like you have to. There's like a secret hidden door that you have to go back to on the first planet. You can, because you might find a poncho or like a cool little Jedi. What are they called? Force memories, where there's like every planet has sort of a history and narrative to it, which you can read into if you want or not. And I don't know, that stuff's really cool. So you get this kind of richer than normal or usual picture of Star Wars, which I like a lot. That's the kind of stuff I really miss from KOTOR, and I think has been sort of lacking in the new trilogy. And maybe we're just getting into it now because I've been watching The Mandalorian, and it's nice to see like these different tones and angles of the universe. And I think even if like Cal's like journey is very typical Star Wars, it's like you have to sometimes try instead of not try. That's like the ultimate message. There's a lot of stuff sort of in the margins, and even not like up front, that is like some deeper lore for Star Wars that was pretty cool to find.
There's a whole planet where the Force exists, but the people who live there just use it completely differently.
Yeah,
and that's a really cool idea
in a really arcane,
Star
creepy
Wars
way.
Yeah, right. It's really unexpected and quite un-Star Wars in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But they managed to sneak that stuff in, as well as doing the kind of traditional Star Wars story stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good point you make about Dark Souls, actually. There's those are kind of weird little nods to Dark Souls. So you'll meet lots of NPCs, and they'll almost always finish their talk by laughing, which is a direct Dark Souls thing. So whenever you meet anyone in Dark Souls, they end by going like that.
Oh god.
And it's very creepy, but that seems to have carried over into Fallen Order for some reason. I don't know why, but it's still quite a nice nod. And I'm really glad that the Dark Souls stuff and the Metroidvania stuff is really light touch.
Yes.
I think the game knows what level of challenge it wants to give the player. So, for example, there are sort of Metroidvania bits where you can go back and backtrack and then get through new doors, but it highlights all the doors on the map and exactly where they are. And it will color code them according to whether you've got the power or you don't have the power to deal with them. So it takes all of the guesswork out of it and just makes it much more of a sort of light touch experience. Like it really wants to be a kind of almost an arcade kind of action game with some exploration on the side that isn't too taxing. And I think it's just pitched that stuff quite really perfectly. I think my only problems with it really have been performance problems on PC.
Yeah.
And I think PS4 players have had this as well, but on PC particularly, I had terrible stuttering with it, and it really broke up the game flow. It got me killed in combats. It seems to me, like anecdotally, to be something to do with loading in new areas. So as you're traveling through the world, it's kind of like in the background. Of course, the game is trying to pull in information and textures, and that's where it seems to fall down. But it's a real shame because like giving it a score, it just hurts the experience so much. You've got to mark it down.
Yeah.
But hopefully, like that will eventually get patched and the game will be in a better shape. But otherwise, I think it's great fun. It's just a really nice traditional holiday release.
I think it felt strangely, I don't know, retro to me, and I think only not besides the fact that you're doing some kind of very typical action adventure stuff, but because just the shape of the game overall, like you mentioned at the top, no microtransactions. It has a beginning and an end, and you can just leave it. It felt extremely refreshing in a year where I feel extremely fatigued by a lot of ongoing games and sort of the hooks so many games and publishers, developers try and kind of get into us. And I guess on another final note that this is EA is embracing Unreal rather than Frostbite. And despite the performance issues, I think this game looks fantastic. And hopefully this is at least a first step into abandoning, or at least not wholly attaching themselves to that troubling engine that I think was a huge part of BioWare's development flows.
I think the thing there is that Respawn gets to do what Respawn wants to do in their relationship with EA, because making Titanfall and Titanfall 2 those games did not stick to conventional EA practices, or like EA wants every game to be a service game.
Yeah.
And Respawn has gone and made a standard single player game. I think Respawn is just relatively independent in their stable of studios. So I think they've made that decision and went for it. Vince Zampella just went for it.
Yeah, tremendously talented studio.
Yeah, very much. Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah, exciting games, really good.
Cool. Anyway, Tom, thanks for coming on and telling us about it. We'll let you go off to dinner. And,
thank you very much.
Yeah. And we'll have you on another time to talk something else.
I'd love to be on. Thank you so much for
Take care.
See you, folks.
Bye, Tom.
All right, Joanna, I'm gonna move your face and get a stand-in for Tom, so there's not a blank space. But
should be a Jedi.
You should be a Jedi?
No, he should be a Jedi.
He's got Jedi vibes to him, doesn't he? He's very Jedi vibes.
He needs a poncho.
I kind of want one after playing that game. There's some good ass ponchos, and that's the thing. Oh man, I don't know.
I'll eventually play it once the PC issues get sorted. But one thing that's kept me at such a huge distance from anything Star Wars is I'm so sick of the Jedi narrative when there's so many other stories to tell. I mean,
agree.
And I mean that's why awesome, the Mandalorian.
Have you been watching that? You've been watching
yes, I have actually.
You digging it?
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about it. I'm not too sure about the story. It seems so far a very easy story to tell right now.
Right.
But I'm just happy that it's not focused on Jedis because I'm so sick of Jedis.
Oh my God, trust me, I got that same fatigue. Let me move this box.
But it was nice to hear Tom talk about that one planet that uses the Force very differently. So that I'm interested in.
I think you will vibe so hard with it. Personally, like I don't know. I'm excited for it. It's spooky Force is what I'll say. Spooky Force.
Okay. So then I would definitely Yes, I would
Yeah. This is,
definitely love that. And I mean, just fine, yeah, it's Jedi, but it's a different representation of the Force. And really, in a lot of any like film or animation, or even a lot of like, I haven't read too many novels, but a lot of the main media that is pushed out to consumers, it's always one representation of the Force.
yeah.
And I mean, nobody even talks about gray Jedis.
What's this? I don't know what this is.
Gray Jedi. God, why am
Give me
I'm
some deep
blanking out.
lore. I thought you didn't like Star Wars.
I know. I don't, but I just know.
But you got the deep lore.
And gray Jedis, I mean, they're legitimately in between like the light side and the dark side of the Force. They're neither good nor evil.
I'm into that.
They're in simple terms, they're right in the middle. And delving into books and comic books, there are characters that are talked about that are gray Jedis that make an actual choice. They're like, well, I don't like the dark side, but I don't like what the light side is doing either, so I'm just gonna go rogue and do my own thing. And they're classified as gray Jedis, basically. And they have a lot of interesting characters and lore themselves. So if I'm assuming the main character in this Jedi Fallen Order is not a gray Jedi. And if he was, I would have even more interest in it.
Nah, he's a perfect little boy.
yeah.
He's a perfect little boy.
Somebody says somebody in chat, I can't pronounce the name. I'm terrible with pronouncing
Dathomir?
names, especially in Star Wars. No, or Dathomir, and then
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. Yeah, it was the Gray
Asuka?
Jedi. That sounds about right. Yeah. The Gray Jedis are pretty interesting. So
All right, cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you for the Star Wars lore minute.
You're welcome.
Let me switch us back to our main feed where a black box now exists instead of Tom Sr.
Yeah.
I need to get like a 2-person layout so I can just rotate you all in and out like some kind of nightly talk show host or something.
That'd be easy.
Boom. Just a big black void between us. Lovely. But anyway.
Wait to look at that later.
Star Wars, more like Star Wars. I don't care unless I can stream it on my brand new Google Stadia subscription service. Wait, I don't know what it is. Explain to me what Google Stadia is.
What Google Stadia is.
Yeah, like
right.
top down.
Yeah.
What the hell?
So it's this, a controller, and a Google Chromecast.
Oh.
And that is all the hardware that you need. Basically, it is a cloud gaming service where instead of any of the games being processed or rendered on your local machine, whether that's a PC or a console, everything is rendered in a remote data center at a Google location and streamed to you over the internet. So their controller connects to your Wi-Fi, and it will send over your input over their network, and then their data center will process it and then send it back to your Chromecast, which will then display it on your TV. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. It is cloud streaming, and I don't think Jedi Fallen Order is on their list of games at launch. I could be wrong. They decided to put 22 games instead of just the normal 12.
Yeah, a couple days before launch, right?
like a day before, I think. Yeah. And there was the whole kerfuffle with people who pre-ordered months ago. They didn't like get any of their equipment in the mail. They didn't get codes or anything. There are people who had just pre-ordered not after them, and they got codes. So the whole kind of launch thing was really, really messy. Yeah. But I mean, Google is now, I guess now officially they're a game developer. And I mean, they also have their own proprietary software that game developers can use to design games specifically for Google Stadia. There's one game on there called Gylt, but it's spelled Gylt. That was why am I blanking? I'm blanking out on the developer for that, but that was created specifically for Stadia, in the cloud. And not only is it's you play as a little girl who's trying to find her best friend in the town that she lives in, but it's a completely like warped town. There's all these monsters everywhere, and it's very sinister. It
Mm-hmm.
feels very dangerous. But it's a game about about being bullied, basically,
Oh.
and it's what the monsters represent. You'll go through the school, and there'll be like posable like wooden mannequin things, and they'll be like in different situations picking on somebody. So it's just this whole overwhelming like feeling of like, you know, when you're bullied, you feel very abandoned, right? And
Bummer.
I think they really got that um that feeling down in this game. But in terms of how it runs, I
Mm.
mean, that game in particular felt extremely smooth, extremely fluid,
Right.
very responsive. And I think maybe also because it was specifically designed for Stadia,
Mm-hmm.
whereas all of the other games had to be ported over. But technically, Google says no, they're not ports. But yes, they're ports because they were originally designed for something else. I'm always going to say that.
You are
But
right. Yeah.
Tequila Works, thank you, Shadow. Thank you very much. Yes, Tequila Works, the company behind Guilt.
Yeah, just I'll name off a few works because this is funny to me. Like,
Yeah.
real quick, and then the Sexy Brutale, good game. Rhyme, did not play it, but it's pretty.
It's a good game.
Deadlight, don't remember too well. I think it's a zombie game. And Groundhog Day, Like Father, Like Son, a
Huh.
sequel to the movie in VR. Anyway, and Guilt.
And Guilt.
Yeah.
I will say Guilt sounds like it's the best one out of that entire list. Granted, I haven't, except for Ryan, haven't played any of the other ones, but I'm curious about Groundhog Day. So
Yeah, weird. So random. Anyway.
but yeah, the game runs very well on Stadia. But if you want to get a real idea of what Stadia is like, it's a little bit of a hot mess.
Oh, bummer.
I mean, aside from, so I have an article that's supposed to be going up later today. I did latency testing for inputs on local PC, and then playing Stadia on PC, and then playing Stadia on my TV. And of course, surprise, surprise, playing on your local PC has much lower input latency than anything else.
Right.
So I mainly tested with Destiny 2 and A Shadow of the Tomb Raider because those were the two games that I have like available on my local machine.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider was really interesting because on my local machine, the latency was about 83 milliseconds, and then every time I moved it to a different when I moved it to a different like platform on Stadia or a different resolution on
Yeah.
Stadia, it like doubled almost.
Huh.
So going from my local machine to Stadia on PC playing Tomb Raider, I went from, oh, excuse me, I think I'm sorry, 83 was Destiny 2, 63 was Tomb Raider.
Okay.
So I went from 63 to 120 milliseconds.
Ooh, okay.
Stadia on PC completely doubled, which I
Doubled,
mean,
yeah.
you're cloud streaming over the over the net, it's to be expected.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you just hop into Stadia on PC and play a game, like it still feels really responsive, but then you drop down and you go back to playing on a local machine. Oh my god, you can instantly tell the difference, and just the way that you move. It almost feels like when you're playing it on Stadia, whether it's on PC or the TV, it feels like if you're trying to pull something heavy with a rope. It's like
Huh, that's a good description, yeah.
little bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
So and then going from PC to TV with the same game, on 4K, the input latency was around like 270.
I don't know
And
about that.
then yeah, I know. And then when you drop down to 1080p on the TV, it's still like around 250. Destiny 2 surprisingly was a little bit more forgiving. 83 on local machine. Stadia on PC was I want like around like 150. So almost double. And then on TV, it wasn't too much larger. It was around like the low 160s to the high 160s.
Okay.
But I was only able to test those two games. So I mean, take everything with a grain of salt. There's going to be like some games that perform better than others, but Stadia recommends like, oh, for 4K gaming, you know, you need at least 35 megabits per second down. And it's like, well, that can, I mean,
that could work. I don't know. That
can,
feels.
it could work. It will work with guilt because I did limit my bandwidth to the Chromecast. So for single player games like that, especially ones that, you know, were designed for Google Stadia, it's fine. But you hop on there with 35 down trying to play Destiny 2. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I don't know.
Your input latency when I tested that for the main review was like 440 milliseconds. Like it
Yikes! Big
was
yikes!
yeah, oh my God. So I mean, and that's just on the performance end right now. And sorry, Google, but at least as it stands right now, like, still not any better than playing on a local PC. And yeah, sure, you know, you got to put hundreds of dollars, maybe even more than 1,000 into your gaming rig, but that's going to last you a long time. And I mean, just trying to get my Chromecast on the internet and connect my Stadia controller to the internet and the Chromecast, like, Chromecast in general just do not do well with like switching wireless networks. So last night I spent 45 minutes just trying to get it to work and factory
Yikes.
reset and everything. Yeah, it kept telling me that, oh, I need to turn off the setting in my router settings, but it was already turned off. So it was just this huge big thing. And then I eventually got it. But it was more work than it needed to be, where all I want to do is I just want to turn my PC or my console on and just load up a game. And okay, yeah, sure, there's like Google Stadia doesn't have any loading times theoretically, or there's no, I mean, there's still loading times when you're initially booting up the game, but you don't have to download anything.
Right.
Because it's already available. But it's like, you know, if your internet's good enough, sure, you can wait the 5 minutes to download your game. It really doesn't matter. But then it also has a bunch of weird things, like 4K isn't available on PC yet. You can't buy games through the Stadia app on your phone. You can only do that through your PC.
Okay.
The only resolution settings that you can only change the resolution settings for either on your phone or on your TV, because PC doesn't have 4K yet. But you have to change the resolution settings on your phone. You can't do it in the game when you're there. Yeah, and
so
there's
weird.
and you exactly, and you only choose between three. It's like either like best looking one, which is the 4K, balance, which is 10K, or limited bandwidth, which is at 720. Which that brings it's more for limiting how much data Google Stadia uses, which I'll get into a second. It's a lot if you're going to stream at 4K. It is as bad as we thought it was. What was I saying before? But then when you only one of the games that I tested, which was Shadow of the Tomb Raider, inexplicably playing it on PC, there's two graphic settings in the game in addition to having the resolution settings in your Stadia app. But on Tomb Raider, you only have two choices, either quality or performance. And then that's it. But it's like, if this is supposed to be Google Stadia, shouldn't that not matter?
Yeah.
Question mark. Yeah. So I didn't understand why that was there when we're changing resolution, but then again, that's what led me to believe that the resolution settings is basically for limiting bandwidth. And on the app itself, it says if you're playing in 4K, just note that, you know, some games can take up as much as 20 gigs per hour.
Holy shit. Holy shit. What?
Depending on what you're playing. If you're playing in 4K, 20 gigs per hour. Yeah.
That's not sustainable in the current, like,
No.
current internet providers. A lot of them have caps, like, you'll run into so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, holy shit.
Luckily, I have Spectrum, so they don't
Same.
have caps.
Same,
Yeah,
but-
because whenever they did that merger, one of the conditions of the merger was, oh, you can't have caps on data. So they legally aren't allowed to do it, and that's the only reason. So I'm like, I wouldn't be able to do Stadia otherwise, because when I did about my initial test, 2.5 hours of testing, just starting with that, and I went through 5 different games. So it was Destiny 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Mortal Kombat 11, Kine, and Guilt.
Yeah.
Between those 5 games at 2.5 hours, I used 40 gigs of data.
This is not, that just won't cut it for half the
No.
audience, potential audience.
Absolutely not. And so, I mean, if you're doing 40 gigs of data in 2.5 hours and you're gaming every day, let's say, it's a month with 30 days in it, before you get to the end of the month, you're already over a terabyte of data. And I know AT&T, they have like a cap at 1. You can pay extra to go over that, but some providers, like they're a hard limit, or some providers even have limits below that depending on your package.
Yikes.
Whereas if you're streaming on a local machine, because you already have that game downloaded to your system, there's not that much data that you're transferring over the internet, especially if it's a single player game.
Yeah.
I didn't get to test Red Dead Redemption 2 in 4K, but I'm wondering how much data that game is going to suck up, because it's very, very visual. But also, one of the big offenders for data usage was Mortal Kombat 11, because of all the inputs you have during the fighting scenes. The
makes
data
sense.
just completely spikes with that. So the game is constantly having to figure out how to, move your character and move the other one too that you're fighting against very, very quickly. So if you're in a situation where there's like a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes in Destiny 2 or another multiplayer game, there is so much information that's getting sent over, it's going to cause that data spike. So if anyone has Stadia and you're interested in seeing how much data that it's actually using, because Google Stadia won't tell you. You have to actually
Really?
go. Yeah, there's nothing on the app to tell you how much data you're using. There's no alerts or anything like that. You would have to go to your internet provider to find out, like log into your account and see how much you're using, or log into your router's administration. And mine has a setting to where I could, or at least my old one did, I'm not sure about my new router, you can see your data usage in real time. So if you want to see, if you have Stadia and you want to see how much data you're using, just go.
It's kind of horrifying.
Track it in real time. Yeah.
That's probably a big reason they kept it out, at least initially. Just because it's a little horrifying to see.
I mean, I'll continue to play it for Guilt because I like that game, and it's only on Stadia. And since I have it, I'm like, I might as well finish it. And I guess now I have Red Dead Redemption 2. And I mean, I'll play it through Stadia on my PC and just hardwire my PC into the internet, because I get like 450 down.
Yeah.
It is something absolutely ridiculous with my Ethernet. Because I don't have Red Dead Redemption 2 on my local PC. Otherwise, I play it with that. But I'm like, I might as well do it with this. But even when you're playing in 1080p through Stadia on your PC versus locally at 1080p, Stadia still looks worse, because it's obvious that it's being streamed over the internet. So you're going to lose a little bit of image quality.
Right.
And because everything has to be updated in real time. It's not like streaming a movie on Netflix where everything can look clean and crisp, because it's already done. Plus it's a lot less data. But you can definitely tell the decrease in quality from local PC to Stadia on PC. Yeah,
I
it looks
guess
fuzzier.
so. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
and I try to keep in mind when we talk
Mhm.
about this stuff that we are. I mean, we're PCgamer.com. We're like
Yeah.
enthusiasts of like the ideal platform for the ideal PC gaming experience, and expensive hardware, high resolution, great graphics, all that stuff. Like we love that shit. So
Yeah.
I keep that in mind when we're talking about Google Stadia because I'm like, okay, so maybe this
Yep.
just isn't for me, right? This is like, who is
Yep.
this aimed at?
Yeah.
But even now, I guess like this launch, there's a couple caveats here. This is the, what are they calling this launch? The premium, or I don't know,
Oh, it's the
early access
Stadia.
club, founders club, right?
Oh, yeah, it's
Something like that.
I don't know,
I don't know.
people who got this they signed up for the Founders Pro
That's what it is.
edition. Yeah, it's the one where you have to pay a $10 subscription
Right.
monthly.
So yeah, so to break it down, like to play it all right now, you need to spend like a minor console's worth, on access. You need to pay for it's a $10 subscription per month, you say?
Yes, if you and the $10 subscription, what that gets you is basically discounts on games.
Okay, so it's
So
not
it's
even you don't
yeah.
just get games with that.
No.
Okay. You have to pay
Yeah.
full price for access to some of these games, correct? Like
Sometimes, yeah. So it's like the way that Xbox or PlayStation, like for their subscribers, will discount certain games each month. You
Mhm.
can have access to that. I think they have discounted almost all the games for launch.
Okay.
But I don't know how long that's gonna stay. But yeah, that's until the free subscription comes out next year. They haven't given a
Right.
specified date yet, I think, which you can just sign up for it. But you sign up for free, you don't get discounts
Gotcha,
on
gotcha.
games. Yeah.
So I don't know, like I imagine when I imagine this thing working, I think of the perfect scenario where it's like it's kids who don't give a shit, or like people who are just like this kind of middle class, like don't really care about the absolute quality of their gaming experience, the optimization of it. They're just like, I have games, I can play them
Hmm.
well enough wherever I want and for cheap. The thing is, it doesn't sound like it's going to be accessible to those people in terms of the pricing. Like I
Yeah.
think of this working for the kid who plays Fortnite on a shitty phone, from 4 years ago and loves it and is great at it. But it's free to play, and
Yeah.
there's access for that kind of player. This doesn't sound like, well, right now it's definitely not there because this feels like
Yeah.
a rush to get out before the holiday season. Like it
Oh,
feels very,
absolutely.
very
Yeah.
clearly. But even down the line, I'm having a hard time looking at the monetization schemes and seeing it work in that regard, for someone who just wants easy access to games and they don't really care about that, like doubling
Yeah.
the input lag or the input delay. But I don't know. Do you see it working, or where do you see it fitting? I guess
I mean,
if it does.
there's definitely a market for this. So,
Mm-hmm.
I have several friends who are older, and they have kids that are like in between like
Mm-hmm.
9, 11, maybe 12, and they don't they're on limited funds,
Mm-hmm.
and they just have regular old laptops in their house and everything. They don't have any like thing that's gaming, right? So what they actually use, I saw somebody in the chat mention GeForce Now.
Hmm.
They use a similar service to that called Shadow.
Hmm.
And what Shadow is, I mean, yeah, you're paying, and now they came out with a subscription tier, and based on your subscription, you get a different kind of hardware on the back end. So
Hmm.
what I mean by that is like you're paying monthly for a virtual PC
Oh,
basically, and
interesting.
depending
Okay.
on how much you pay, you get um whether it's like a mid-range PC, a high-end PC, or an extreme
Mm-hmm.
PC. So it's, you pay that, you install the Shadow client on your laptop, desktop, whatever, and you load into it, and it brings up a virtual desktop that you can install Steam on, Origin, Battle.net, anything, and you install all your games on the virtual PC, and then you play them like that. Um, NVIDIA's GeForce Now kind of works the same way,
Right.
except it's still in beta, and in order to play any of the games that they have in their catalog, you have to actually own them on Steam or another platform. But you load into that, and it asks you, sign into Steam and everything else. So it's like you are still playing on a virtual PC. And I've spent a lot of time with both of those too. And I will say, the single player game experience felt better than Stadia. Where you run into problems is the multiplayer game, and a lot of that, of course, is dependent on your internet connection, whether you're on a 2.4 or a 5
Right.
spectrum, your internet speed, the location of your computer to your router, if your wireless adapter has an antenna or not, and there are just still some computers that just can't play games, or there are some games that play very poorly online, like PUBG. For instance, PUBG is terrible via the cloud. I mean, there's problems with it on local machine. So, but going back to your whole thing of like, who is Google Stadia for? I mean, your controller costs $69. The Chromecast costs $69. I think it's really for the people or families who just want to get it for themselves or their kids, who maybe aren't technologically savvy, who just want to have something that they can buy the games on and not have to worry about it. Or worry about anything else. But the catch the catch with that is you actually do need to worry about it, because you can't just plug it in and lo and behold it's going to work. You have to actually know like what your internet speed is, what your the kind of router that you have. You need to know different ways of like getting the most out of your internet connection, whether you need to move the router and modem in your house to hardwire the Chromecast in, so you have access to the best possible connection. You might need to upgrade your internet connection. So there's still a lot of moving parts that go into getting Google Stadia to work, and somebody who isn't completely savvy with that, who thinks like, okay, well my internet speed is 100 megs. Like if you're, playing wirelessly versus wired, you lose about 50% of your internet speed or more, depending on how it's can set up in your house. So if you only have 100 down and you want to play Stadia on your wireless connection, you're roughly going to be getting only about 50 or less. So your game experience is going to be severely impacted, especially if you're trying to play Destiny 2, right?
Right.
So there, I think a lot of like for the average consumer, which I think Stadia is aimed at, they're not necessarily, they might not understand that, and they might get frustrated with it. So it's I will say, like, I love the concept. I love that that this is an option, but gotta be realistic about it. And through interviews and such, it feels like Google is trying to be like, not just, yes, this is another option for consumers, but they want this to be better than PC gaming, or even better than console gaming. And I'm just like, nope. I forget about it. Like I forget. I wrote an article about this, and I forget what like high-ranking representative at Google said this, but he outright said that Google thinks that in 1 to 2 years, Stadia will be faster or more responsive than a local machine. And I'm like,
literally how?
How?
Literally,
Yeah.
like you got some quantum fucking
Yeah.
mechanical CPU that I don't
Yeah.
know.
No.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's like,
Okay,
first of
pal.
all,
Okay.
okay, just throwing all those like okay sure memes,
Uh-huh.
in a
Uh-huh.
gifs. But I'm just like, no.
No.
I mean, not when like there are other cloud gaming platforms again, like GeForce Now and Shadow that perform better, which at some point, like I will be digging into and doing latency testing with those as well,
Mm-hmm.
because my experience with them just seems to, it seems to be better.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, that very ambitious dreams, Google. Very ambitious dreams.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a bummer that we didn't get like their best effort first, and it feels like, again,
Yeah.
like to revisit Black Friday, it feels like holiday push, get a product on the
Yeah.
shelves, get something on Amazon or wherever else that people will see and be like, what's this? I know Google, they got games now, and like get it.
Yeah.
I'm still, I think there's still a lot to look forward to in the streaming space and from Google as well. It's just the impression I get is, and like your headline says on your review, is it's just not ready for prime time. Just not ready for prime time.
Nope.
And I hate to rush us forward, but it's 11
Nope.
o'clock, or excuse me, my time, 11 o'clock MT, and PT is when this Half-Life Alyx reveal is lifting, and I think we should
watch.
Yeah, let me go ahead and I'm gonna get it up. See, I don't know, like where they're hosting the trailer or what.
Yeah.
Where is this happening? But we've got some news up already because we talked to Valve beforehand. And while we find that stuff, why don't you? So people in the chat, like I'm not gonna host it on our actual stream, but we will maybe. I'll get the audio at least or something, and we're gonna watch it. If there's a trailer or something, if not, we'll just talk about the info and kind of break it down. But Joanna, do you have a history with the Half-Life series or any affection for it at all?
I mean, a long time ago.
Long time.
I did play Half-Life 2, and I remember like my initial thoughts about it was I just really enjoyed the story and the characters, and yeah, I mean it's not Half-Life 3, but
No.
we're getting something.
Let me see if they got.
And it's I'm just a little bummed that it's VR. Because depending on the headset, VR makes me very nauseous.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the trailer here. Let me give it to you here, Joanna.
Oh yeah. It's like where am I watching this thing?
And I'll post it in Twitch chat in case people need it.
Valve doesn't have a Twitch. Okay.
They are on. It's on the trailer's on YouTube right now. So
okay.
Let me throw it up here. Alyx Half-Life. Get you this trailer, Twitch chatters, in case you haven't Googled it yourselves yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk the details after because I know
Yeah.
I was before when this was initially announced. I was like, and all we knew it was a VR game, called Half-Life Alyx. I was like, I did not give a shit. I just didn't care because this is how we're going to return to this universe is like in a VR game. It's probably and like Valve has played around with tech demos in the Portal universe and things like that in VR before. So my expectations were this is going to be just kind of like a simple proof of concept kind of thing. Just like, hey, check out the stuff you can do. And it's also Half-Life, so you want it. But after hearing about it, and we'll watch the trailer now, I am back on board. So let me make sure it's not too loud. I'm going to go ahead and press, do you want to count down, press play together?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we can watch it together and
do
the YouTube. We can go ooh and ah.
Ooh, we're gonna watch it together. Okay.
All right. You got it ready?
Let's do it.
1,
All right.
2,
1,
3.
2, 3.
Play.
Go.
I thought that was you breathing.
Okay.
Ooh, spooky. Oh no.
Oh, but it has the disembodied hands though.
Head crabs in VR. No thanks.
If we can get this weapon, what we're doing here could change things forever.
There's no straight shot to the vault.
My God, strike.
I'm gonna head inside, find a way out. Got it.
I'm with you every step of the way.
You're gonna need a gun. Don't worry, it's unloaded. It's unloaded now.
Combine channel's really picking up. They know you're coming. You need to get out of here now.
Moving stuff around to grab ammo on this cluttered
I haven't
shelf.
seen that. I haven't seen that before.
They've
Yeah.
got Dad.
They're gonna find out what he knows, and then they're gonna kill him.
All this is
Some
my
New
fault.
Zealand voice actor.
I never told you. I couldn't. I'm so sorry, baby.
You will not save him. Alyx Vance alone cannot prevent his fate.
Close your eyes, honey.
Is there? Oh, what's this? Fucking G-Man.
Ooh,
He looks younger, a little more handsome.
a little bit. Yeah.
March next year. That's pretty soon.
Yeah.
That's pretty soon. So let me get your take, at least on tone and vibe and some of the things we saw. What's your reaction?
Well, ironically, I also just have to point out, for the original Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines,
Yeah.
that come out at the same time as Half-Life 2? It came out at
Close
the
to
same,
the same
time
time, yeah.
as like a really big game,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, pretty close.
And it kind of got overshadowed at the same time. So this is March 2020. The new Bloodlines 2 was originally supposed to be March 2020. But they
Okay.
pushed it back. But
Wonder
I
if
mean,
they
they already announced that, right? Because they needed to polish more things on the game. I'm just finding it really, really funny.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Good pull. Good pull.
And initially for VR, because I have played some VR games recently, the disembodied hands, I'm just like, oh, you could. That's
Yeah.
so like when VR just came out. But other than that, that makes it really cringy for me. It looks and feels amazing, and it doesn't feel like the Half-Life that I remember.
Yeah, that's what's weird about it. I think it's like
Yeah.
it's the added detail, like in a lot of ways. Well, and we're so used to like the Gordon Freeman sort of trans-dimensional, very detached narration perspective, and this feels like a much more I don't know, just from the trailer, like
Yeah.
story up front, and with Gordon, it was just about like those are quiet games. Those are pretty quiet games, you know.
Yeah.
This looks like a very narrative heavy thing.
Which, heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like
All for it.
the
yeah.
Half-Life universe is fascinating. It's like a really great sci-fi universe, and that's like what I love about that series. Besides the great gunplay and the fun physics at the time,
Yeah.
the way it silently, through visuals and like just really subtle cues, expands on this really expansive, intricate universe. And I don't know, it's gonna be cool to see that in this like close-up form. Again, like I'm assuming it's going to be narrative heavy, especially if we're playing a voiced character for the first time in Half-Life.
Which would be great. Yeah. We were kind of oohing and ahhing over the whole like boxes out of the way
Yeah.
to get to the ammo. I mean, that is what
cool.
I've seen with more recent, VR games, just that kind of granular like type of movement now, because now we have like hand controllers that can track all of that stuff. So it kind of like makes me wonder, like, okay, so there seems like there's going to be a lot of that stuff in there. And I also wonder, like, okay, it's for Steam VR, like what other VR headsets is this going to be compatible with, and I'm hoping, more than just the Oculus, because the Oculus is the one headset that actually like makes me really nauseous. I can be fine with like the Vive and everything else, which again, like I mentioned before, I hope, I mean, even I hope they decide just to put it on like regular PC. I'd be fine with playing a VR game on PC, and I've done it before. But just I can't. I figured out what it is with VR headsets, and the Oculus for me is the worst. So it gives me that screen door effect. So when I'm looking into the headset, I see all of the little dots that make up the screen. And so that messes with me. And then also, it only for like eye distance, the Oculus or depending on which one, the models only go down to, I want to say, like a distance of like 59 or 60 millimeters. And my eye distance is closer than that, so that's what causes a lot of my nausea. But it looks super spectacular. I love the whole grungy sci-fi feel to it, where you have, you know, the floating ship, but you still have the old school like power cables coming from the ground that go up to there. And honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Star Wars universe in a sense, because they're so high tech, like higher tech than, you know, what we have in our reality, but it's also grungy, at least, you know, if you're,
everything looks like
you
it's
know,
slapped together out of like scrap.
yeah. And this is kind of what it feels like here, but it also feels, I don't know, there's so much of that trailer that's like foreboding.
It's
It's
really
just
spooky.
Anyways,
well, I do want to, because we talked to Valve beforehand, so we got a lot of granular info. I will say, so you were asking about headsets, and some people in chat were, any Steam VR compatible headset will work with this.
Awesome.
So
Thanks,
whatever works
guys.
for you, fuck yeah. It's the kind of thing that it will be free if you have a Valve Index. It will be free. So that's like the incentive there. Though a Valve Index is like $1,000 for the whole deal. So it's not, you know, like, $60 off. This is it's Valve's biggest project yet. It's the biggest group of people Valve has ever had working on a single game. We talked to who do we attribute this to? I don't know if we have it in this. I don't know. But yeah, it says Half-Life. This is a quote from Valve. Half-Life Alyx is the largest team we've had yet. About a third of the people on the project have worked on previous Half-Life games, some all the way back to the first Half-Life, including those recently acquired from Firewatch developer Camposanto. So they've played an important part in, quote, played an important part bringing fresh perspectives, which has been a crucial part of our process. And that's exciting to me, because Camposanto does great first-person narrative stuff.
Yes, they do.
A couple more tidbits here I'll list off. It's about as long as Half-Life 2. Playtesters are clocking in about 15 hours on average. So this is not a cute little, you know, Aperture Science tech demo that's going to show you all the things you can pick up and move around in VR. This is a full-fledged game.
Good.
Yeah, a couple more here. Yeah, back in City 17, this is a prequel. We're playing a younger Alyx. There's a new voice actress. Let's see, who was originally portrayed by Merle Dandridge. I don't know if I'm saying that right. In Half-Life 2. This time Alyx is played by Ozioma Akaga. Sorry if I'm messing that up. She's been in Mirror's Edge, Catalyst, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, and unsurprisingly, there, you know, G-Man and other familiar characters are returning, which has me curious, because this is a prequel, right? We're gonna see Alyx's struggle in City 17, like when the Combine are, I'm guessing, initially taking over, or like, you know, escalating force in some regard. I don't really know the details here, and it's been a while since I, read about the available lore. But I'm really hopeful, since the G-Man is involved in the Half-Life universe, is sort of, it's not tethered to linear time or space necessarily, that this can be a prequel that also advances the narrative in some way, or at least like gives us something besides a novel look at something we already know that happened. Couple more. Sorry, let me just get through these. Alyx will have gravity gloves. So before the original gravity gun, the 0-point energy field manipulator, before that was invented, Alyx had gravity gloves. These are like a sort of a prototype tech that worked its way up to the gravity gun we know and love. Which that sounds like a pretty cool.
That's gonna make for some, I mean, just the way they're describing it, that's gonna make for some really fun gameplay
in VR.
In VR, I mean, especially if you're, you're gonna have. I mean, again, the Oculus hand controllers, you're gonna be moving those around, and it's really gonna feel like, oh, I'm like something into my gloves,
Yeah.
haha,
And I think like that it's not gonna solve the problem of like moving through 3D space in VR, like as
Right.
in first person, but I think it will soften it a bit because you maybe don't need to be running all over the damn place all the time to get the perfect shot or to pick up an item. You can just kind of pull it towards you.
Yeah.
And you're not, maybe, I don't know, like we don't know exactly how the movement will work. But I get really taken out of it when a first person VR game has that like teleport option where you just like point to a place and you're there.
Oh yeah.
That, I don't know. That's not how I like to explore space. I like that instant movement feedback and control, but we'll see how it goes. Any more tidbits here? We have like 3 or 4 stories on PCGamer.com, so like go check it out.
Go read them.
Yeah, a lot of cool images of the game too that are not in the trailer. Some spooky images of Combine and dusty rooms full of servers and computers, and that, like you were mentioning, that really kind of grungy, dirty, futuristic sci-fi setting,
like the Matrix.
Exactly.
Like that's exactly what I think about. Yeah. Cyberpunk. Yeah, it's got all those little different feels to it, but it not completely that. It's got its own. So which is great.
Wild. Any other takeaways from this? Like, I don't know. Do you think? Are you into
Maybe
it? You gonna play this?
I mean, yeah. Since if it's if I don't have to use an Oculus headset with it, and I said this about games in the past, but then I found out like, oh, you're only on the Oculus. Damn it. If this might actually be the game that makes me pull the trigger on getting a VR headset just so I can play this.
I think that's the play, right? That's Valve's kind of. It's a huge investment. If any company can make an investment like this safely, because Steam prints them infinite money and will forever. It's it's Valve. They can take this big leap and be the first to sort of like, they're not the first to make big full-fledged VR games, but this is Half-Life we're talking about, like a like in the PC gaming canon, it is like gaming canon is like one of these series, one of the all-time greats and beloved. So
and if there's going to be any series that's going to go down in video game history that isn't like a Nintendo game, it's the Half-Life series. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, always remembered.
We're going to be, because we know Valve talked to other outlets as well, so we'll be digging up all the tidbits and news and kind of collating them in that piece I linked to in Twitch chat. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're at home right now or listening later, PCGamer.com obviously will have everything you need. This is going to be our focus today. You can imagine. And for the coming months until March 2020, which is, that's way sooner than I thought. Damn.
Soon. Oh my God. It's almost December.
Oh my God. So it's like 4 months. 4 months until a new Half-Life game.
March is gonna be here before we all know it.
Wild. Yeah. Wild. Yeah, I think that's we'll call it there. Sound good? Feeling good?
Feeling good. Yeah.
Right on. Sweet. If you missed the top of the show, I'm seeing some people did. You can always catch us after the fact at youtube.com/PCGamer. You can get the audio version of the podcast at pcgamer.com/tag/podcast for the Spotify feed, iTunes, RSS. You can go to anchor.fm/pcgamer for all that stuff too. Excuse me. And the new streaming schedule, if you want to catch us here at twitch.tv/pcgamer, is I haven't locked in a time yet because I'm still like playing around with kind of that soft half-hour window, so I can get UK people on sometimes. 9 a.m. PT, 9:30 a.m. PT. You can Thursday mornings generally. Let me know if it's working for you all or not. But it's working for me. I like it better than the middle of the week, which everyone's dead tired. Once we're over the hump, I feel like everyone's just more enthusiastic and happy to be here.
Yeah.
Rather than literally the middle of the week when we are the most at our peak despair. That's gonna do for us this week. Until next week, don't forget to what?
Game on.
Game on. All right.
Oh God.
So many great audio clips I'm gonna pull out and use to blackmail you in the future.
No, every time I'm on the show, I will do it in a different voice.
Perfect.
Every single
You're
time.
you're one of the most enthusiastic people who does it, Joanna. So
good.
I appreciate you. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.